Today, I'm joined by Jeshurun Vincent, a Malaysian musician and inspirational speaker who has traveled to almost 156 countries, spreading hope through music and resilience. His story is one of courage, discipline, and unwavering faith. Okay, well, so thank you very much for taking your time to be with us today. I know that you've just arrived, and we are the first media that you've given up your time to, talk a little bit about yourself. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
And so, this is your first time in Timor-Leste. How has it been?
When I arrive, I can see the friendliness, the kind hospitality of the people. So, there are people even in the airport as well. I just told you we arrived, right? So you can see people just come to help us with smiles. So, it's one thing. It's just the people are so friendly here. So I'm so touched by your kind hospitality, and being here, Timor-Leste is my country 156, and so far it's been amazing. Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you have gone through being what you are today?
Yeah, so my name is Jeshurun Vincent. I come from Malaysia. What happened in my life was I lost my left side hearing at the age of 19. So that actually caused me to be bedridden, because when you lose one side of your organ, you will probably, you can't wake up because your body will lose the balance system. So a week later, I was able to stand, and then we did couple of checks, and then the doctor just said that, you lost your left side hearing, total loss, just overnight. No any symptoms and anything. So that caused a big change in my life actually. So initially I was running away from it. I couldn't accept the fact. That brought me to depression, because everyone sees me, hey, you look so normal, because I don't wear any aid or anything. Because why? If you can hear a little, the aid will help you. But in my case, it's zero. So there's not going to be any help on that. So people say, hey, you look so normal. But deep inside, I was struggling because no one understands me and things like that. So I was having depression, but slowly I was able to come out from it. By God's grace, I can say that. And then from there on, I had this vision to travel to many countries to share my story, hoping to inspire people in my journey of what happened in my life as well. Yeah.
Well, you said hoping. You are known as a hopeful musician. How do you, in a way, what does hope personally mean to you?
When I say hopeful musician, because there's many challenges that comes, right? We always will not know whether we can actually go through it, or we will fail, or many things can come. But I think one thing as humans, one thing we have to do is we have to hold on to the hope. And when we hold on to the hope, right, that is where actually we can actually, continue to do. If it's like it's going to change, these are temporary, that's going to better. So when I say I'm a hopeful musician, I was just holding on to the hope that I can continue to travel different countries and inspire people. So initially when I started one country, I thought, okay, it was coincidence, and then it was 5 countries, it was coincidence, 10 was coincidence, and then it was just keep on going. So one thing I learned in the travel was to continue to hope. Don't lose your hope regardless of the situation. So that is one key message that I want to leave for everyone here. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So your musical journey began with, as well, in a way to put it, it began with punishment, struggle, and even, if I'm not mistaken, a dislike for music.
Yeah, I dislike music.
So how did that shifted?
So because in schools in Malaysia, right, nothing wrong, because it's just that in schools in Malaysia we play flute. So when I had to go to like formal lessons and everything, I was struggling quite bad actually. So I was struggling to play songs like Mary Had a Little Lamb in the first songs in the book. And my friends would actually play songs like the Titanic theme music. That's how far music can mean. So my teacher used to, the way she do it was in a good way, wanted me to learn music. But of course, because of those punishments and everything, it actually brought me even further as well. Intention is good actually for my teachers. But slowly one day, what happened when I went to a particular place, and there was the music was going on, and one song touched my heart. So I went home, I took the same flute which I couldn't play, and slowly within 2 hours I was able to play the flute. No one taught me, and so I realized I had the like a music talent via hearing. I was able to hear and I was able to put it into the music instead of learning in a different way as well. So from there on, my late mom saw me and she like, wow, you're able to play. So she sent me to a different organization. And then from there, it's a church actually. So my church music taught me how to pick up music from there. And I was 15. So I had to wait 4 years, by the way. I was 10 years old. I waited 4 years later and then they called me and from there I picked up music as well. So from there I had the passion for music. It slowly changed from there on as well. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you've mentioned at the beginning that Timor-Leste is the 156th
Yes,
country
correct,
that
yep.
you've been to. So, well, how did these? Sorry. Yeah. So you said that you've traveled to 155, and Timor-Leste is 156
156.
countries. Well, without asking for money or creating any sympathy, I guess, in a way. How did these three personal rules shape your journey?
So one of the common questions people ask is, oh, you must be very rich to travel the world. Because when people say travel, it involves a lot of fundings, money definitely, and then a lot of things. So when I travel, my vision and idea was number one, I want to meet local people. I want to give talks to inspire them. That was my key thing because I wanted to inspire people through the message. So it was not more of sightseeing, not more of visiting places and anything like that. I mean, if I get that, that is a bonus.
Yeah.
But my prime goal was I had a vision. In every country that I go, I want to meet people, share my story. It could be in schools, university, prison, national TVs and different avenues as well. So when I had that vision, right, so my trips, everything are shaped towards it. So number one, as I said, I don't ask anyone money for travel. I don't create sympathy to ask anyone money for travel, and I travel within whatever I have. So so what I do is in Malaysia I live an ordinary life. I work couple of jobs to fundraise for this. So I live an ordinary life. So whenever I travel, I stay in local people's house. I share the meal. In places, there are places where I couldn't find local people. The worst, I stayed in airport for 2 days, 2 nights. That's the longest actually. And there are times where I travel like 7 days, 7 countries. So every night, and when I reach morning, I have like talks and everything. At night, I will go back to the bus. So I'll take the night bus to the next country. So the bus could be my home for the next 3 days. So I travel within the cheapest mode of transportation. So I did all actually. I tried flight, land transportation, train, even by ship or boat also I did actually. Yeah. So all those become part of the experience. So my idea was to travel with the least minimum cost that I can finish this goal actually. So in between, there are a lot of people who, you know, when they engage me, they say like, hey, since you're coming, you can stay with us, you can share a meal with us. So that helped me a lot in my costing as well. And that kept my mission going as well actually. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the first country you visited and what was the experience like?
So my first country was Myanmar in 2014, which is 11 years ago. So as I was sharing just now, you know, when I lost my left side hearing and everything. So when I came out from it, I was thinking, okay, maybe I can just go to a country to share my story. So Myanmar was the first country that popped up, and then I went there. I don't know anyone. I just bought a ticket because it was cheap. Up and down was 50 USD. Back then it was quite reasonable. So I bought this ticket. I went there. I met some random people. I went to some random village. Went to meet. So I was meeting local people, and everyone was so touched by my story. They were like, oh, your story as an inspiration. So when I came back after 3 days, right, so maximum I could stay there was 3 days. So I went and give talks and I came back. So after coming back, I realized that, oh, that was kind of good, but you know, I will just stop it there because I don't think I can continue because you need a lot of money and everything. But the following month, I was able to raise a bit of money again, and I was able to go to Indonesia. And then a month later, I was able to go Brunei, and then 2 months later, Thailand, and then it was just non-stop from there. So somehow I was able to raise a bit of money from my work, keep some, and I sacrificed a bit, a lot as well, being very honest. I cut out the things that I wanted to do. I kept the money for this as well. So when I went to this country, Myanmar, one thing that touched me is when I meet some people in the village and everything, when I share my story, coming all the way far, losing my hearing, and then, you know, being in front of them itself, that itself was a big inspiration for them. So I realized people like, wow, there are people who really value, I mean, my experience is really valuable for them. So I realized those key things actually motivated and encouraged me to do more. Hey, there's more people I can be and example, more people I can be, like my story can touch them. So that kept on pressing on. But being very honest with you, I never thought I could reach 156.
Yeah.
Maybe 10, 20. When I reached 50, I thought it was, I couldn't do it. When I reached 102, I got the national record and I got married after that. So when people said maybe you married, you won't continue. But after married, I was able to do another 54 countries. So which makes me 156 now. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you traveling alone, there are moments where you know, come into contact with some things that you're like scared or with fear. What was anything?
Yeah, so in every travel there's a lot of good experience, and also there's a lot of challenging experience, because all this is make the travel a travel actually.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. So there's two instances I can remember. One, I lost my passport in a country. Someone actually stole it from my hand, and I got stranded in that country actually.
Can we know which country?
I mean, it's in Istanbul. Not because it's a bad place or anything.
Right.
It's just my experience there at that particular place or location. Because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, I was from the airport to back to my friend's place, and then because I was on a transit, a 12 hours transit, so I wanted to stay at night and go. So it was that experience actually that, you know, my passport was stolen, so I got stranded, and it took me a lot of layers of process for me to get a replacement document. And sadly, because of that, I lost all my records, me being in 102 countries as well. Yeah, so that's a sad story. Biggest loss I can say, or biggest learning thing I can say in my travels. Apart from that, there was another country where I also got, what do you call this, I got robbed in a way, because in one of these places, the bus left me in the immigration. So I had to choose a person who was riding on a motorbike. We tried chasing the bus, and halfway he stopped and asked me for money. Those kind of experience as well.
Right.
So, but again, I'm not want to say that the country is bad and anything. It's just maybe one or two person or people actually, maybe it's not so. I want to just say that it's not the country is bad. One or two people could be, that the people I encounter could be bad. So maybe that could be the bad experience as well. But being very honest, there's a lot of other good experiences, a lot of amazing people that I met. But yeah, but as a travel, here and there, you will definitely experience some
Right.
challenging moments as well, actually. Yeah.
As someone who uses music to inspire others, how do you stay inspired yourself? Like, where do you refill your own hope?
So for me, firstly, my biggest hope comes from spirituality. I can say it's from God, because without God, like I will always say, who am I? Because it's just by God's grace I'm here. His strength and giving me this gift of life and hope as well. And other than that, it's people that I met who actually also inspired me, because when they come and tell me like how inspired they were, you know, that actually means a lot. It's like an encouragement to tell, hey, Jeshurun, you're on the right track, keep on going. So there are random people I did not know in my life who come and say, hey, just keep on going, you know, you can finish it, you can keep on going, you have touches. And then from random strangers, they become my friends, and I can say now they are my family in 156 countries as well. So all this kept me motivated and kept me going. So yeah, that's one of the biggest thing I can say.
Wow. Okay, we, talking and everything, I just cannot help but look at this guitar with everything, well, like most of the flags. Explain to us what this is, and also with this one as well.
All right.
Please.
Okay, sure. So whenever I travel, I carry my guitar, because one of the key tools I use is music as to reach out to people. So initially I started by singing. So when I sing, maybe English or different languages, people couldn't relate, because maybe that country they probably speak different language. All right. So I realized just playing the music alone, it will actually capture the people's attention and heart, because music speaks to people. So I had this idea of playing instrumental, and I start sharing my story. So this idea came when I start putting all the countries' flag one by one. So first, initially was just until here. I had all, because you can see the similar flags always.
Yeah.
And then from there on, whenever I go to a country, I start getting their flags as well. So from here, you can see some are big, some are smaller, and things like that. So these are the countries that I started sticking one by one, in front and of course at the back as well. And of course, here you have Timor-Leste as well. And so these are. So whenever I travel, people see this and they come and talk to me. Hey, did you travel all these countries? So that itself is like a bridge to talk to people as well, actually. Yeah, so this is one of it. And of course, my book, I just wrote and published my second book. It's called Seed 39F. It talks about my 39 days of travel to 21 countries in South America. Yeah, so I just published this a month ago as well, actually.
Wow, because
Yeah.
at first sight, I thought C39F was maybe the first seat that you've, sat on the plane on the first time you
Oh, okay.
took your flight.
So many people thought that, or maybe people thought maybe that's my favorite seat.
Oh.
The interesting thing is, when I started 39 days, 21 countries, I went with zero money. So basically when I left Malaysia, I emptied my wallet. I took a big step to continue with that. So I just relied 100% on living with locals, experiencing possible, what do you call this, shortage of money, yes, actually. But I somehow made it through. For 39 days, I completed 21 countries.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
But there's a clause here. I actually bought all my flight ticket way ahead already. So yeah, so my when I say there's no money, in the sense that for my local daily needs as well. So that is where for 39 days I took a big step and experienced a very different journey. So that's why I'm able to write this book today and to share my experience in detail. Yeah.
Oh, and is there something like anything interesting about you that you would like to share to, I don't know?
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things definitely in the book, because when I say zero money, people like, hey, how did you do that? Because it's not easy, because from the first country for me to go to a neighboring country, Singapore back then, I was just thinking in my heart, hey, I'm getting hungry. How am I supposed to eat? And then it was just amazing, because my cousin brother was waiting for me at the airport, and he got to know me coming like 3 hours before that. And the first thing when he met me is like, hey, let's go eat. So you can see like there's always like a pathway where already someone is just to continue to help me and things like that. And of course there are other experiences as well. There was in this trip, there was a point where 7 days I was in 7 countries. So you can imagine it's like this morning I'm in country A.
Exactly.
I meet, do a few talks and everything, and then at night I sleep, and then the next morning I have to go to a new country, do the same everything. So it was crazy because it was crazy because not only the people, not only the place and everything, but it also the energy that I need to have to do it. Because every morning, some of those countries I need to be in the airport at 5 in the morning. Some could be like 9 in the morning. So I really thank God, because I had the strength to do it as well. So that are some of the key things that I can share from this book as well. Yeah.
I know we had a little talk before this interview, but there was something that you said that I really want you to share, which is your performance in one of the FIFA World Cup of 2020. 22.
Yeah.
Please share.
All right. So in 2022, back then, in most of the countries, they are slowly started to open up after the pandemic. Right. So I got married in June. So in August, I did a trip to Doha, Qatar. So through the Malaysian embassy, there was a guy that because they heard me, I'm coming from Malaysia to do a performance in Qatar for part of the our National Day celebration in Doha. So there was a guy who heard me coming, and then he just randomly wrote to me in Instagram and said, hey, there's a FIFA World Cup is coming. Why not you just write and apply to be a performer? So the FIFA World Cup was in November, and that was August, end of August being very exact. So that was 2 months before the FIFA World Cup, and in my mind I was thinking it was impossible for someone like me to get, because number one, I'm not like a well-known musician. That was my initial thought. And number two, it's already just left 2 months. I think impossible someone will get selected and everything. So I just wrote my application in, and then they gave me a contact number to follow up. So I started following up every day. So I mean, not every day, being like few days once. Every few days once, the person will reply and tell me, your application is on the table, but we haven't decided whether to approve you or not. So you won't believe me, I came to a point, the FIFA World Cup started, and I was not selected. So I was just telling the guy, can you just tell me, you're not going to select me, at least I can give up. I know I can just give up, oh, I know I'm not going to make it, alright? But the person was insisting me and telling, your application is on the table, we don't know whether you was yet selected or not. I couldn't accept it because, hey, the World Cup already started, and where after this you're going to call me? And one random Sunday, but I was just keep on telling the guy, can you please give me one chance? I just want to do one performance, just one time. One day is more than enough. I would love to come there, just do one performance, because it will mean a lot for someone like me, for someone who lost left side hearing, to come all the way to an international stage to perform, it means a lot. So I don't know what moved this guy. When the round 2 of the World Cup, on a Sunday, I just got a message, a call, and say, can you come to Doha? Tomorrow, you're going to perform at the FIFA World Cup.
Yeah.
Happy, yes.
Yeah.
Maximum happy, but another part I got stunned because it was tomorrow. And it was not like 2-3 hours away, it's like 6 hours away. So, and I found out the ticket was close to 1,000 USD, just one way.
Goodness.
Well, that's a lot actually, and I couldn't, now there's a challenge, there's a roadblock there. So I was just thinking how to do it and everything. So I find another alternative going via another country. So I reached a day later, which is 2 days to be exact. I reached there and I did my first performance at the FIFA World Cup actually.
Oh my goodness.
So it's a cultural activation whereby they will set a lot of cultural booths. So you perform with different international artists. So I did 6 songs in one set for about 9 days over there. So that was my big experience being part of the cultural activation program, and it means a lot for someone like me coming from a very common background, and it really means a lot till today at the FIFA World Cup.
Wow! Oh my God, that is amazing. Okay, so what message finally do you want to share to young people or just people in general, especially those facing, I don't know, similar situations as yourself, to take from your story?
Alright, so I want to make it 2 messages if you're okay. Number one, maybe people who are struggling, facing depression, facing some kind of like lost hope, or maybe having suicidal thoughts and everything. So I just want to encourage for those who are watching today, because you know, your life is the most valuable thing. You know, many people can discourage you, many people can say things, many people can demotivate you, can say, oh, your dreams are impossible, your goals impossible. But I want to just say, if you focus on what you're supposed to do, somewhere you'll be there. Because I always believe in this one particular phrase, when you do the possible, you do the best in whatever you do, I always believe God can do the impossible. So this is the key message. So whenever some people say, and always your setbacks are not mean that you're going to fail or anything. It's like a rubber band, you know, a rubber band, right? If you pull the rubber band backwards and you, as much as can, at some point, that's the maximum you can pull. And when you let it go, it's going to go further away. So your setbacks could be like that. It's pulling you further away from your goal. It looks like you're pulling you further, but at some point, that's the maximum. You could go even further. Like when I was young, no one would say, Jeshurun, you're going to be a national record holder. No one would say that. Everyone was telling, hey, especially they will say to my late mom, they will say, your son is crazy. What is he trying to do? Trying to round the world? What's his purpose? There's no goal. And there are some countries I only speak to one person. They were like, what's the point? You go there to meet one person. So many people discourage. So, but I continue with the purpose. I learned to continue with the purpose, and that actually put me step by step. And you know, so I want to tell people here. So today, if you are hearing this story, it's not for you to give up. It's for you to press on. All right. Second message is for the people and youths in Timor-Leste. All right. I hope in the coming years that I will see national record holders from Timor-Leste. Someone, you know, could be doing some great achievement, maybe winning the Olympic gold medal, discovering something new, or maybe setting different records. Because many people will think, oh, it's a new country, or maybe the people, we are still new, we are still small. I feel that should not be an obstacle. You guys are amazing. You guys have talent. You guys have potential. If you continue to work hard, have the right mindset, right motivation, never give up. Timor-Leste, the people in Timor-Leste, you guys will set a new record or benchmark for other countries in the world as well.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So, after visiting almost every corner of the country, what do you feel is your mission now? As in, what is the next step for Jeshurun Vincent?
All right. So, as I mentioned, I just published my latest book. So, what's after this? Probably I'll continue to travel a bit, because I stopped traveling for at least for the last 6 months to focus on my book as well. So, probably now I have more time to plan some of my next travel, because technically I have 46 more countries left actually. If I were to finish, and I'm hoping one day I can.
Yeah.
So, I'll probably slowly work baby step, because some of these countries need couple of months planning as well, because they are visa requirements, they are planning. So some you need to require planning of the local agencies. So once you reach there, you can maximize your time and efforts there as well. So I'll probably slowly start working on it. And of course, while I have the chance in Malaysia as well, I'll probably visit schools, universities to give more talks and things like that as well. So these are the things that I'm looking forward in 2026 that hopefully I can do it as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so while you're here in Timor for 3 days, are you planning on visiting any universities or any in here? Like
So
what's
over here, through with the Embassy of Malaysia, there's two restaurants that they are partnering to promote Malaysia, tourism Malaysia, because next year is Visit Malaysia 2026 as well. And on Sunday, I have two different organizations who also invited me to speak to some of their local groups as well, actually. Yeah. But I mean, of course, if there's other universities and everything, I'm open to share and visit as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being with us here today. And like I said in the beginning, you just arrived and you're here right now. But thank you so much. And well, I wish you all of the best of luck in your career and anything ahead of that.
All right. Thank you. Likewise, thank you for having me this morning. And I continue to wish you all the best, wish everyone all the best, and continue to inspire and aspire. Take care. Yeah.
Thank you so much.